Hey, it's the Empire, Geoboxing Empire, Backshot Boxing. Now, man, the press conference happened for Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury, man. The fight is happening extremely soon with Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury. There's a lot of antics that was happening in the lead up to this fight. Now, Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury were having a face-off, and what happened was, for some reason, John Fury, Tyson Fury's father, stepped in trying to mock Dillian Whyte, and it was to the point where people were assuming that Dillian Whyte and John Fury were doing a face-off. The guy was talking trash, and Tyson Fury actually had to pull his father back, taking his father away from the fight. Because Dillian Whyte was telling John Fury, man, get out of my face, because you know what happened, right? If Dillian Whyte would have hit Tyson Fury's father, he would have been out cold. Now, all that being said, man, a lot of people are weighing in on it. People are saying that John Fury is tasteless for what he's doing. People don't want to see fake beefs. They're paying to watch fighters fight and not people's family try to get a quick 5 minute of fame or 15 minutes of fame, right? All that being said, man, this Dillian Whyte fight versus Tyson Fury fight is a long time coming. Dillian Whyte has been mandatory forever now. He's finally getting his opportunity. And a lot of people talk about the Tyson Fury story of, a man who was undefeated, but who fell down from grace because of drug problems, because of mental health problems, But people, what they don't talk about is the Dillian Whyte story. The story of Dillian Whyte getting stopped early in his career and coming back, going on a run, on a tear, beating former world champions, and still falling on the way up to the top and losing to Alexander Povetkin, but still getting his opportunity to fight for a title. Understand that Dillian Whyte has beat former undefeated champion in Joseph Parker. He beat former undefeated champion Lucas Brown, right? He beat a lot of fighters who were former champions at the time. And when they were champions, Lucas Brown, in his case, he was undefeated when he was a WBA regular champion, right? Joseph Parker was undefeated when he's a WBO world champion, right? Lucas Brown was undefeated when Dillian Whyte stopped him. Joseph Parker only had one loss when he got beat by Dillian Whyte. So that being said, man, Dillian Whyte has a deep resume, and there's never been a fight in Dillian Whyte's career where he's just getting bullied, beaten, and battered and stopped. All his fights are him in a competitive fight, and then he gets clipped, right? Him versus Anthony Joshua, that was a competitive fight, man. Those rounds are back and forth. It wasn't Anthony Joshua completely dominating him. It was a back and forth fight. Him with losing to Alexander Povetkin, he was dominating Alexander Povetkin, man. He was dominating him, and then he guys got clipped with one shot. Now, even in a Derek Chisora fight, that was a competitive fight. Say if you thought he lost by a round or two, it was still a competitive fight. There's never been a fight where Dillian Whyte is getting completely dominated in any fight he's ever been in. So Dillian Whyte, man, the guy is not a walk in the park. He's an elite level fighter, and this is for all the marbles in the heavyweight division. Now, one interesting thing about this fight is, Tyson Fury has been real inconsistent in his career as far as competing at the highest level, right? Now, when it's a big dog, when it's an elite level fighter, the guy shows up, right? Like he did for Deontay Wilder and Vladimir Klitschko. But when it's a guy that no one talks about, like a Tom Schwartz, the guy is, or Otto Wallen, he's struggling, he's going life and death. He went life and death against Otto Wallen, almost lost the fight, could have easily lost the fight just based off the cut on his eye, right? That being said, Dillian Whyte has not been going to any press conferences for Tyson Fury. He has not, right? The split for this fight is insane. I heard it's an 80-20 split for Tyson Fury. So Tyson Fury is getting 80% of the purse, and Dillian Whyte's only getting 20% of the purse. Therefore, Dillian Whyte said, man, listen, if I'm getting only this amount, I'm not going to be showing up to press conferences. For what? I'm not getting paid anything. You're wasting my time. I'm not going to pay all this time and work and time out my camp where I can just be training, and Tyson Fury can show up for the camp. He can show up for the press conferences. He can sell this fight, right? He's getting 80% of the money, so he can sell it, right? So Dillian Whyte, he hasn't not been showing up. He hasn't give Tyson Fury, he hasn't gave him much to look forward to, right? He hasn't gave him anything to train for. He hasn't said anything, he hasn't really gotten his face and really made it, a fake beef, even anything for Tyson Fury to bite on. Tyson Fury isn't exactly a self-motivated kind of guy. He's the kind of guy who has to be pushed to be his best, and that can be exclamation pointed during his fights with Klitschko and Deontay Wilder. He showed up, but there's just fights in his career where he's struggling, right? It's facts. So that being said, is Tyson Fury motivated to fight Dillian Whyte? Dillian Whyte, that was a power move when he didn't show up to the press conferences. I think that's a smart thing he did. I don't think that Tyson Fury trained as hard as he did with, let's say, a Klitschko or Wilder. I think that Tyson Fury has gotten complacent. I don't think he's trained as hard, as those other fighters. A lot of people will assume that Klitschko and Deontay Wilder, they're better fighters, and that could be true. But that's when you start looking past your opponent, and that's a very dangerous thing to do in the sport of boxing. And I do think that Tyson Fury is the kind of guy who maybe his fans think he's the best thing since sliced rice. Some people are calling him all-time greats. I mean, some people are just inflating Tyson Fury's ego, right? So that being said, man, I think Tyson Fury has a tough hill to climb, because I don't think he's been taking Dillian Whyte seriously. Furthermore, there's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I just haven't talked about. Like Tyson Fury, he made sure all the judges in the fight are not UK judges. He made sure they're all American. He made sure they're all foreign judges. They're not from Britain. So that being said, Dillian Whyte is loved in the UK. Dillian Whyte is loved more in the UK than Tyson Fury, because he's been fighting in Britain for a while now, and Tyson Fury hasn't fought in the UK in a very, very long time, right? He had an investigation open to him for his dirty test, right, with Vladimir Klitschko, that let him get stripped for all his titles. So all that being said, they finally let him back, but Tyson Fury is a foreigner in Britain, and Tyson Fury is afraid of getting robbed. That's why he changed all the judges to make sure they're not British, right? So that being said, man, there's a lot of if you're in America, you would think that Tyson Fury is loved in the UK. He's just not. There's a lot of America will pick any foreign fighter over American, especially if you're black. I mean, if you're a black fighter and you're fighting a foreign fighter, America will go for the foreign fighter. A lot of people will assume that the UK loves Tyson Fury, but that's not really true. It was just American versus Britain. But now that there's two British fighters and they actually get to pick a fighter, they picked Dillian Whyte. And if you know anything about Dillian Whyte, he may fight in Britain, but the guy's born in Jamaica. People don't talk about that, but the guy's Jamaican. Just like the late great, all-time great fighter Lennox Lewis, who's Jamaican, but he fought out of Britain as well, and he fought out of Canada. So this is a thing that people aren't talking about, but it needs to be noted, because that's a really big deal. That it's such a big deal that the judges have to be changed to non-British people, right? You would think that Tyson Fury would want all British judges. That's just not the case, man. And this is a red flag for Tyson Fury, because maybe he might think he might need to stop Dillian Whyte. You know how the fight goes, right? Tyson Fury might land a couple jabs, a right hook. The crowd is relatively dead. There's maybe a couple Tyson Fury fans, maybe 20% Tyson Fury fans. Dillian Whyte lands a shot on Tyson Fury. The crowd goes wild. These are the dynamics in boxing that can sway the judges to one fighter or another. Say what you want about Tyson Fury or Dillian Whyte, but let's be honest, Dillian Whyte hits much, much harder than Tyson Fury, and he's a really good counter puncher. So his punches are going to be eye-catching shots, counter shots, and it's gonna wake everyone up. Not only that, Dillian Whyte has more fans in the UK than Tyson Fury. Let's just not play games. He has more fans over there. So it's going to be a David versus Goliath moment, where Dillian Whyte is over here trying to beat this big 6'9", very, dancing fighter who's good with his jab and good at moving around the ring, don't really want to engage. Either way it goes, Tyson Fury is either going to try to be too elusive for Dillian Whyte, or he's going to try to go to war, which I think would be a big mistake with Tyson Fury. That thing he did with Deontay Wilder, that won't work on Tyson Fury. I think that Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder, that won't work on Dillian Whyte. Tyson Fury could not try to bully Dillian Whyte. But, you know, we're going to see what happens. But it's wild stuff, man. Let me know how you guys feel about it, though. Like, comment, subscribe. This is the Empire. GeoBox Empire. Peace. GeoBox.